Hey everybody, Andre here. So, the title of this video is Music Theory is Not What You Think It Is. That's not totally clickbait, but let me explain. So, I see very frequently online and even with some of my students this question of, do I need to learn music theory? And I think this question doesn't give you the full story. So let's dive into this a little bit. I think that very often when people ask this question of whether you need to learn music theory or not, there are two concepts that get conflated. So, first of all, what music theory actually is the study of pieces of music and how certain things inside of those pieces of music work to create that work of art. And then an additional element of music theory is how can we trace trends throughout different pieces of music that maybe are from a similar time period or from a similar stylistic perspective, or they're from, there are similarities, there are contrasts. Can we trace trends throughout those different pieces? Are there certain patterns that emerge, certain elements that keep on repeating, and then how do each individual how do each individual pieces, how do they break those patterns, or how do they play into those established musical forms and ideas? So that's what music theory is. It's an in-depth study without too much, right or wrong. It's all very much, it's a pretty subjective, field of work, um, because everybody experiences music differently. So that's what music theory is. What I think people think music theory is music literacy. Okay? And so music theory and music literacy are not the same thing. Okay? They are not the same thing. I just explained what music theory is, but music literacy is the act of reading sheet music and or understanding fundamental aspects of musical language. This can be over many different kinds of musics, right? There is not only Western harmony, there's a lot of different kinds of approaches to music. Of course, for full disclosure, my field is in Western harmony, pretty Eurocentric, I'd say, foundation to music. But I think that the majority of, if you are watching this in America anyway, I'd say 90% of the music that you listen to has roots in that Western style. But anyway, music theory and music literacy are not the same. So whenever I hear people ask this question, do I need to learn music theory? I think that what they're actually asking is, do I need to learn music literacy? Very important. So let's forget about this for a second. Okay? We're not going to worry about music theory. We're going to worry about music literacy. So, do I need to learn music literacy? The next step, if I was to answer this question for you, the first thing that I'd ask you is, do you get paid to do music? Are you a music professional? So, are you a music professional? Simple question. Yes or no? Let's talk about no for a moment. Okay. Are you a music professional? No. The next follow-up question would be, why do you do music? What is the purpose of your exploration of this art? Okay. So if you are not a musical professional, it really depends how far you want to take your craft. If you just want to play a couple of chords for yourself and playing along with some songs that you hear on the radio, you can very much do that by ear. You don't have to learn how to read sheet music. You just pick up the instrument, work your way towards getting comfortable with it, and then just jam along. It's not, you're doing it for fun, right? So at that point, it's not a requirement at all to learn how to read music or learn those music fundamentals, unless you want to go a little further in your study. So I would say, if you're not a music professional, the answer to this question, do you need to learn music theory, will most likely be no. But if you do want to hone your abilities, it will only help you. It won't hinder you, right? It'll never get in the way. It'll just help you be a better musician. Now, are you a music professional? And if your answer is yes, if you get paid to do music, I will absolutely say that you 100% need to learn music literacy. Now I know immediately someone is going to go to the comments and say, well, there's so many music professionals that don't know how to read music, or they're famous for their ability to do things by ear and whatnot. And, I hear the example of like Hans Zimmer come up frequently. I mean, prolific film composer with so many credits of what I think are actually pretty awesome scores. And people always say, well, he doesn't know how to read music. Well, don't be fooled. This person has decades of experience, decades of music making, decades of playing piano. It would be obtuse for us to think that he doesn't know his chords. He knows his scales, he knows his keys. He is musically literate even if he doesn't read music. Okay? He knows the fundamentals that go into music. Even if it's not like, you don't have to be analyzing music, you don't have to be writing papers to know music fundamentals. He knows his chords, he knows his keys. He is musically literate even if he doesn't read music. I would venture to say that he probably does read music to some level, because after so many years in the business, you just pick up these skills, right? So I think that argument of, well, there are professionals who have been very successful without learning to read music, I think it's not a healthy argument, because they are the exception to the rule. If you are a musical professional and you are not a well-known star, and you are starting off, or maybe you're in the middle of your career, or you do this as a living, if you don't have a well-rounded toolbox, there are going to be 100 other people, 1,000 other people with just the same exact skills as you that maybe have an edge on you. And I know that's hard to hear. Lord knows it's hard for me. Constantly facing this feeling that, yeah, there's going to be people who do things better than you do. And you can't let that get in your way, of course. You have to just stay the course. You have to do your work to the best of your abilities. But if you aren't musically literate, even to a basic extent, it's just going to make your life harder than it needs to be, and you won't have that same skill set that some of your competition might have. So I know that's hard to hear, but it is important. It's important to know that. So if you are a music professional, you need music literacy. There are degrees of this too, right? So are you a performer? Are you an engineer, like a production person? Are you an educator? Are you, what is your field? If you're a performer, of course, music literacy involves things like, how well can you sight read stuff? If you get offered a gig tomorrow, would you be able to show up for that gig and read the music down with minimal to no errors so that you make a good impression and then get called again? If you don't have the fundamental music literacy skills, it's going to be very challenging for you. If you want to take it to the next level, if you're a performer and want to set your performance of the music apart from others who are performing at a high level, your knowledge of the inner workings of a score will give you insight into how to make that piece special. And you won't just be relying on your ear or your technical ability. You'll actually be able to converse with the music itself. So that's an important one. Now, if you're an engineer, can go many different ways here. If you're an audio production person, you need to know what you're listening to, right? If you're listening to a pop song, for example, if you're recording a pop song, probably know the basic chord progressions, know how the different layers, how the different melodies are interacting with those chords, know how the different rhythms are being layered on top of each other. So it's really important that you know what to listen for, and then you can convey whatever you hear, right? You can convey that in a succinct and easy to understand way to the performer in the studio, for example, or have a conversation with whoever had written the music, or it keeps going. It keeps going. So it allows you as a production person to better understand what you're working with, and then be able to easily converse with those involved, because as you know, time is money in this world. So if you're tripping over yourself because your musical fundamentals aren't so strong, time is being wasted, and therefore money is being wasted. That's difficult, because there are budgets, right? There are budgets. And if you're an educator, your job is to teach music, right? If you're a music educator, your job is to teach music. And if you don't have that skill set, it's just not fair to the students, right? Because you're not giving them the information to understand music at a basic level. So if you don't have music literacy as an educator, I don't know how that might be possible. Some strings were pulled to get you through. But so I don't think that most educators would probably think like, yeah, you're being ridiculous right now. Of course we have music literacy, otherwise we wouldn't have gotten to this point. So this is probably a non-issue for most educators, but you never know. You never know. So do I need to learn music literacy? Yes. If you get paid to do music, you better be musically literate. Okay. Otherwise, you're gonna get called in for a job, and unless you really blow them away, you're not gonna get called again, right? That's from a gigging perspective, and I know it's hard to hear, but it's important. So, just to summarize everything that we just said, music literacy and music theory are different things. So when you ask the question of, do I need to learn music theory? Probably you are asking whether you need to learn music literacy. And from here, just to confirm, music literacy is two things, learning to read music and learning the fundamentals of music. And the fundamentals of music can range from, chords, keys, scales, rhythms, all of those different things. Those are not theoretical things. Those are facts, musical facts. Like a major chord is a major chord for a reason. It's not, it might be a major chord. No, these three notes have created a major chord. That's what it is. So that's my perspective. Maybe you think I'm horribly off base here, off kilter, but I hope this is useful to you, maybe, or maybe this is just nuts. But I really stand by this. If you get paid to do music, you should be musically literate. But, do you need to learn music theory? Do you need to understand the inner workings of the piece? Do you need to trace those trends over decades of different composers and pieces? Maybe, maybe not. It really depends on how far you want to go. Like if you're a pianist and you're learning a bunch of sonatas, you should probably learn about sonata form, because that'll inform the way that you perceive the piece. It'll help you. Do you need to learn every single sonata that was written from 1700 to 1900 to understand the music that you're practicing? Probably not. Right? Would it be interesting? Probably yes. But it just depends on how far you're willing to go. So, do I need to learn music theory? Maybe. Do I need to learn music literacy? As a professional, yes. Very important. All right. So that's what I got for you, folks. I hope this was enjoyable. Hope this wasn't too offensive, but I think it's something that we all need to hear sometimes. So I hope you have a wonderful day.